Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday School Hour here at Haynes Flat Baptist Church. I want to welcome everybody here and everybody online. Got a good crowd this morning. Beautiful day to be out in the house of the Lord. Beautiful day to be in the Word. And we want to just continue to not only to study, but let's continue to try to fill these seats if we can. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 7 this morning, verses 1 through 14. If anybody needs to go ahead and look that up, turn those pages. And while we're doing that, we always begin with praises, prayer requests, concerns, anything you want to lift up to the Lord or give Him credit for, thank Him for publicly. Now is a great opportunity to do that. So now's the time to share what's going on if you feel the need to. Absolutely. Yeah. It was a shock, to find that out. If you're unaware, Debbie Estes passed away. COVID-related complications, I think that's how they're saying it. So Mark and Ann requested, prayer for their family as well. Just continued support in that, and we'll do that. Others? Okay, we'll certainly get that one. Others? I'm going to ask that you remember all of our spring sports coming up for school system and community. I know some of our teams are now just backed off, I think, to community sponsored, but that's a lot. It's a lot of kids, that's a lot going on, a lot of opportunities there, and just it seems like more and more you turn on, there's some nonsense happening in sports, people getting too heated, too out of control and things, and thankfully, I don't think we've had any issues around here. But I mean, I just hope that they can continue to help those young people. Or I shouldn't say those or them, because I'm involved too, coaching golf. So just continue to remember us, continue to just help us to help kids. That's what it's all about. I'm going to tell you right now from the inside. The more that we can get involved in the schools, the more that we can get going on in the schools activity-wise, the better it is. I mean, absolutely better it is, not only for the schools but for the community. Kids today, more than ever, I think, need things to do that are good, constructive things, more than ever. So just remember, our community spring sports. Others, anything else before we go ahead and pray? Okay, well, there'll be opportunity at the end if anybody thinks of something they want to add. Let's go to the Lord in prayer before we get into today's lesson and see where He takes us. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank You today, Lord. We thank You just for bringing us here. Lord, for giving us the health and the opportunity, Lord, to come and gather together with our church family, Lord, with the family that You are the Father and the head of, Lord, and we just praise You for that. Lord, we praise You for the word that we're getting ready to study, for the messages You will give us today through Brother Travis and his service, and Lord, we just pray, Your support for him. Lord, we ask that You watch over the Mark and Ann too family, Lord, as they deal with their family issues, Lord, with hospice being called in and things, I think, for his mother, and just support and strengthen that family, Lord. And for the Debbie Estes family, Lord, as they go through the final chapters of her loss, Lord, just strengthen them and be with Brother Travis as he preaches that funeral, Lord, as that family is hurting, Lord. You are the best source of healing for that, Lord. You are the best source of support for that, and we just pray a special prayer for them. Lord, for Ken Dykes, as he undergoes surgery, Lord, we just pray that You guide the hands of the doctors and the nurses working with him. Lord, that You strengthen his body, strengthen his spirit. Lord, bring him back to us, Lord. And as we go into the spring, as our community and our schools, teams, and activities begin, Lord, I just pray that You watch over those things, Lord, that you work your will there in those things, Lord, that you strengthen the families involved and just make it a positive experience that grows for our community. Lord, watch over our schools, watch over our community, Lord. Protect this area as you have done so far so wonderfully. Lord, we're so blessed to have you in our lives and so blessed to have your word. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Now, today's lesson, chapter 7, as I said, verses 1 through 14. We are actually stepping back in time, so to speak. We've talked about the fiery furnace, and we've talked about the lion's den. This lesson chronologically actually fits into, but right before the writing on the wall that we skipped. Okay, and this is a vision dream that Daniel has had that affected him so that he just chose to write it down, chose to chronicle it in summary, and study it and keep it, you know. And as I was studying this lesson, and that fact kind of settled in on me, you know, this is not something that he made public right away. It's not like he woke up and ran out the door and said, "Hey, everybody, you know, I had this dream, and here's what it was." He just wrote it down, and I'm thinking, you know, what an amazing thing to have this dream, and then you really just all you do is get up and write it down. You know, he wasn't told to do anything with it right then, but to chronicle it for later. You know, and I'm thinking about me today. I would be like, yeah, but Lord, I need to go do something. Because what do we do today? We want that instantaneous gratification. We want to do something right now. We want to jump up and run around like our hair's on fire and do something. And you know what? Sometimes God says no. You know, and that really settled in on me this morning. Sometimes God says, hold on, wait. Not now. And that's hard. That's hard to do. That's hard to live with, that you can't jump up and run out the door right now and go do something, that we got to wait. I think that's, for me, that's what I got out of this lesson. What you get, we'll see. Now, this is Daniel's apocalyptic vision. Again, stepping back, so if you're following chronologically in your mind, this is going to get confusing because in the very first verse here, it mentions a king that we've already killed off because that's who was there in the very last of the Babylonian period, and then we got rid of him after the writing on the wall, and the Persians took over, the Medo-Persians, and we're gonna wrap all this up. Now, apocalyptic visions are tough. Okay, they're tough, and even this commentary that I get brings that out. You know, these scholars bring this out. That apocalyptic visions are tough. They're scary. People don't understand them. They're hard. So we're going to work our way through this. And I will say this before we get into it. If you went out and you said, you know, I'm going to research all that, you will find variants on exactly what some of this symbolism means according to various, I guess, branches of Christianity or whatever, you know, because symbolism is hard for us. You know, and like I teach in my classrooms, you know, when we all witness something or we all have an experience, we have different perspectives on it. You know, and the best thing I can do is use the analogy of a car wreck. If you got 4 people standing on 4 street corners in an intersection and there's a car wreck, you got at least 4 stories about whose fault it was, how it happened, and all that. And then they go and tell people, and then it gets weird from there. So if you look this up, you may find some sites that are sponsored by other variants of Protestantism, or even the Jews have a different take on it. I'm giving you the best of my understanding of it. So the best of what God allowed me to understand is what I can do. Verse 1, jumping right in. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. So again, we're stepping back in time, all the way back to the first of the reign of Belshazzar. Again, he is going to be the last king of Babylon. That mighty empire is getting ready to fall to the Medo-Persians, which are the next incoming powerhouse, bigger, stronger, badder, better, depending on your perspective. And so these events really predate what goes back there in chapter 5. So if you turn back in the story, this is predating even that. And there's some serious symbolism here, but Daniel gives us right at the end of this verse a fact that we have to realize. He wrote a summary of it. He did not write down word for word, blow for blow. This is not a narrative, this is a summary, which means he gave us just the important facts that we need to know. How much more to this story? We don't know. He just gave us a summary. So we got to keep that in our mind when we're trying to understand this. I'm going to put verses 2 and 3 together to get this thing going. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, divers one from another. Now, in one source, there was a temple feature called the Great Sea, which was just this giant bronze pool that was built that held water, that sat upon 4 giant bronze oxen. Now, first of all, whoever paid for that, I feel sorry for him, because bronze then and now is an extremely expensive metal, and it's extremely hard to work with. So whoever built all that, my hat's off to them. I mean, as a sort of amateur metallurgist, that's some tough stuff to work with, and very, very expensive when you get down to it. Then again, this could literally be him seeing coming out of the ocean, and we never forget that this Middle Eastern region is always near a sea of some sort. And there are 4 of these beasts that come out after 4 winds blow. That's a significant number, 4, isn't it? Because when we talk about the apocalyptic visions, what book of the Bible do we normally think we're talking about? We're jumping into Revelation, which is always something that scares everybody. You can just mention Revelation, and some people will leave the room. I've seen that work. But we're not even there yet, right? This is Daniel. We're way back here in this half. But this is, I think, an echo of that, this 4 horsemen that comes heralding the end of time and man's destruction, so to speak. I think this is an echo of that, but this is not that. This is 4 beasts, so they represent something. And we're going to look at all 4 of them individually in the coming verses and look at possibly the what they represent. And I'm going to continue to use that word, possibly. We'll kind of wear a hole in that word because, again, this is Daniel's vision, and there are different biblical scholars out there who argue, whether or not these 4 beasts represent 4 aspects of the Jewish history, or does it represent 4 other kingdoms? That's going to be up to you to decide if you decide to go out and research it yourself. I'm with this situation right here because I've read through the Jewish version real quickly, and I think this comes closer to the heart of what's going on in this vision here, what I'm about to give you. Now let's go through the first beast here in verse 4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon his feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Now, like a lion. It wasn't a lion, it was like a lion. Okay, so we see that's almost symbolism within the symbolism, which I think always clouds the issue. But in this case, this first beast, in my opinion, and the research that I saw, is that Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar. Now, their evidence for this is, and of course, we don't worry too much about modern archaeology backing up the events of the Bible. We don't worry too much about that. We're not meant to believe, just what comes out of the ground. We're meant to have faith, right? I mean, we all agree there. But when you do look at the archaeology of the Babylonian region, many statues have been unearthed there that date back to the reign of Nebuchadnezzar that are lions, versions of lions with eagle's wings. That has come out of the ground to support that. Now, let's think back to Nebuchadnezzar. What happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He was given the warning of what would happen to him, and then it happened. He went out into the field as a beast with all the aspects of the beast that we're talking about here. He lived on the grass. He had claws. His body hair grew out. He was like a beast or a lion. And it wasn't exactly a lion because it says it's like a lion. It didn't say a lion, like a lion. He wasn't a beast. He was like a beast. And that period happened, and then what happened to him? He was restored. He was lifted back up on two legs. And the heart of a man, which is always in the ancient world, not just been something that pumps blood and keeps you going, the heart was an organ of understanding and intelligence. The funny thing, if you study enough world history, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but if you study enough world history, most ancient cultures just totally ignored the brain and focused on the heart. Boy, there's a lesson, isn't it? Maybe we should forget thinking as much as we do and just trust in what we know in our heart, right? Maybe we should, I don't know. But Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire is this first beast. And if you look, we're creating in this vision sort of a timeline of this level of power that develops and then is taken down, and then another level develops and is taken down. But they all serve a purpose, because look at what God did through Nebuchadnezzar. Look at what God did with that Babylonian Empire, and it wasn't even his people. Okay, and while he was using them for his purpose, he was growing an even greater empire over here to accomplish another goal. And so, in that process, we see this stepping up and ramping up to an ultimate goal to spread Christianity. Verse 5, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Now that second beast, much more powerful, much more powerful, like unto a bear, similar to, or having some attributes of, but more powerful. That is that Medo-Persian Empire that's going to come in and eliminate the Babylonians. Because right after Nebuchadnezzar, he was the high point of the power of the Babylonian Empire. And right after that, it nosedives through Belshazzar, and then is taken by the Medo-Persians. Now, in the previous lesson, I called Darius a Persian leader, but it's really a sort of a partnership empire. The Medo-Persians are Persians in this group of Greeks that sort of attach themselves there. And the significance of the ribs, there's 3 ribs, are the 3 empires that the Medo-Persians eliminated to take power and become the most powerful empire anybody had ever seen at that time. Started with Egypt, and then you go into the Lydian Empire, and they eliminated them, and then they came up and they took all of Babylon. And this just like a bear devouring, he devoured this whole region and maintained control of it in this gigantic, beastly way. And as I was studying this, I wrote down the question, are you afraid of apocalyptic visions? Because most people get that way. You can talk Bible to a lot of people. You can talk about all the stories in the Bible to a lot of people, and they'll even tell you their favorite and all that stuff. And if you mention apocalyptic visions or the apocalyptic book of Revelation, that's where most people want to change the subject. They'll volunteer to talk politics at that point if you bring that out, because most people are afraid of it. I'm going to let that question linger. We're going to come back to that question. Are you afraid of apocalyptic visions? Verse 6, after this, I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon its back 4 wings of a fowl, and the beast had also 4 heads. and dominion was given to it. So we started with like a lion, then we went to like a bear. Now we're like a leopard. Now, first instinct, you might think, well, no, wait a minute. We were getting bigger physically, and then this leopard ain't that big. Well, look up leopards. Look up leopards and see just how powerful they are, just how slow and deliberate and effective a leopard is. I pulled up and watched a video of a leopard who swam across this body of water, snuck up on a crocodile that had to be at least 10 feet long, and drug that crocodile back in the water. Now, a crocodile, if you look at crocodiles, they want to get you in the water. That's their strong spot, is getting you in that water. Because a crocodile, if nothing else, he'll drown you. And here this leopard swam over and drug that crocodile right into its very strong point and killed it anyway. So when faced with a bear or a leopard, I might choose the bear. Just maybe, I don't know. This third beast, having 4 wings and 4 heads, which makes it 4 times worse, right? I mean, that's math I can understand, is this Greek empire that's going to rise right behind the Persians. And of course, we took the Persians to a whole new level. Well, this empire is going to go to a whole new level under the leadership of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great will take over more of the known world as an individual than anybody ever has. He will rival anything later up to the modern period. I mean, he just took over the known world. He took his armies so far afield that they didn't have maps. They ran out of maps for where they were or even how to get back home, and a lot of them just stayed wherever they were, and he traveled back home in cases almost all by himself. And this Greek empire will be like a leopard. He will eliminate, crush, destroy, and that's what the leopard does. He does not toy with his food. He's the only cat that doesn't play with his food. The leopard just crushes and destroys. And world dominion is exactly what Alexander sought. Alexander's empire will go, he said, to the 4 directions. In the ancient world, the 4 points of the compass and the concept of the 4 winds, the division of the earth into 4 parts, was very significant, especially for the Greeks. The Greeks liked all their philosophy to be mathematically sound. And so everything was always prime number sound. 4, 10, 100, these were all significant numbers in the ancient world. And if you need one more connection to the number 4, when Alexander does die, he dies, and they divide this empire that he builds, that is all the world that is known then, beyond it into Africa, beyond it into Europe, beyond it all the way across India almost, into 4 major divisions under 4 generals that worked for him. The 4 heads of the 4 beasts. I mean, it's amazing how all this is fitting together. To me, this is the best analogies for this. This is the best explanation. And this leopard does devour. Alexander, unlike the Persians, now let's look back at the Persians for just a second. If the Persians came in here and took us over today, the Persians would say, okay, you can continue to have this church and worship, you just got to pay a tax. Oh, and don't start any trouble. If you go attack the next religion down the road, we're going to come back and eliminate you. Or if you fail to pay your taxes, we'll come shut you down. But they would allow us to do our thing as long as we were good taxpayers. Something else I teach in my classroom. It doesn't matter what color you are, just as long as your color is green, right? Because money solves a lot of problems and gets you around a lot of obstacles. And that's the way the Persians looked at it. As long as you were paying that tax in, you were fine, do your thing. However, Alexander, no. It's a total conquest. Here's why. Alexander's going to take everything we might have done, erase it, and build a new version of it, and probably name it after himself. There were at least 12 cities named Alexandria, or some version of his name when he was done. And these are not little towns either. He always also brought in Greek people. It was almost a forced migration. He would send back to their Greek homeland and say, send me 1,000 families and I'm going to transplant them here into Egypt, and I'm going to transplant them here into northern India, and I'm transplanting them here into the Baltic states. And his goal was to make the world Greek. Okay, what's the first language that our first Bible is in outside of Aramaic? Greek. Think God wasn't lining all that up? All that paganism swept away, erased, so that one language could help the spread in those first critical centuries of this book. I mean, it's amazing when you look at it. It's absolutely fantastic to me that God did that so that one day I could get saved by this word right here. Okay, that's another way to look at it. All that happened then so I could get saved, so you could get saved, so you could get saved, so people online right there could get saved. Verse 7, after I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured, and it brake in pieces, and it stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, in a later description, in verses that we won't get into, it added brass into that description. There were brass in that description, and that's significant to who this fourth beast represents. And you notice he doesn't give an animal analogy. It's not like a this or like a that. It's an unnamed beast, because I don't think he had any experience with anything that he could equate this thing to. Ironically enough, in some of the research I looked for, artistically they'd drawn dinosaurs of some sort. I thought, well, I think that might have been pushing it a little bit. But anyway, we can't really put anything. We can't give you a visual image of this thing beyond some descriptors here, but it's the descriptors, those details that are important. Iron teeth, brass. It was destructive like nothing anybody had ever seen, and the 10 horns growing out of it. Rome, the empire, is coming. That's what he's seeing coming. You know, review. Babylon, most powerful anybody had seen. Overthrown and destroyed by the Persians, who then take it to the next level. Then overthrown by this Alexander the Great and his Greek armies. Even more powerful, even more far-reaching, even more influential, if you will, than anything we've ever seen. And then along comes something to displace that. And it wasn't Alexander's death that brought it down. It was the fact that it was so big that these people who were unorganized could not operate it. See, it's not, if you look at the sort of the threads of world history, it's not the conqueror that loses the battle. The conqueror doesn't lose the battle. Along comes bureaucracy. Along comes government. And then government whittles away at your power until next thing you know, it's that government that has the power. It's not any one man. You know, I tell my kids at school all the time, forget worrying about who's president. You worry about who's in Congress. Worry about who's running the show on the state level. These are people who affect your life. You know, I don't care who you put in there as president next. They're not going to come fix the potholes on my street. They're not going to be making decisions about what I teach at school or anything like that. And yet we sweat blood over who's going to be president of the United States. My life's never changed next day after elections. You know, gas might get a little higher. But guess what? That's been happening all my life. I'll be 50 in May, and I've never known gas to come down. I've never known anything to come down, actually. We worry so much about that. But it's the bureaucracy. That's what's coming in the form of Rome. Rome is the Iron Empire. Okay? I'm going to jump back over and put my history hat on here. One of the most effective things about Rome was one of the first professional armies to equip the daily, everyday soldier. And they did it using the cheapest metal. You see, all these other empires relied on bronze weaponry. And a bronze sword is great. Super expensive. A bronze helmet, a bronze shield, again, Incredibly durable and fantastic, super expensive. For what you'd outfit one bronze soldier, you could outfit many more in iron weaponry and iron equipment. And that's what Rome did. Rome fielded this highly trained, highly equipped army that, yeah, their stuff may not have been the best, but they outnumbered you. They were better trained. They out-tacticked you, out-strategied you, and they out-governmented you once they were victorious. And that's the significance of those iron teeth. I mean, the legions, okay? And again, 10 horns. Legions are set up in blocks of 100, which divide into tens. There's always 10 generals, 10 legions, legions of legions later on, always divided all the way down to groups of soldiers that camped in groups of 10. That can't be not significant, right? That's got to be significant to this situation, in my opinion. Now, as this beast comes on, it is destroying everything. It is destroying everything. It's so big, it's so powerful, nothing can stand up to it. No religion, no fortification, no other government. It is all powerful. The Roman Empire does stretch further than even Alexander went. I mean, they're still finding things further and further out, where they used to draw a line on a map and say, well, this is as far as they went. Well, no, wait a minute. Now we found something way up here. Now look way over here. Here's another outlier. Here's a camp that they found that some Roman army was in for years, all the way up into Russia and all the way up in the northern end of Scotland and all the way here and all the way there. And they're just everywhere. And again, I've always said it's this was God using this empire, because as you map the spread of Christianity, it follows Rome. It's significant that all the apostles later, especially Paul and those who traveled with him, dealt with the Roman government. They used the Roman mail system to send letters. They traveled on Roman roads. You know, it's amazing. The Roman Empire, nobody else was building roads and bridges. The Roman Empire understood to move this highly professional army and to make this highly organized bureaucracy work, we've got to have good roads. You know, somebody posted online that, America's going the way of the Roman Empire, and then somebody replied to that and said, no, the roads are better in Rome. So, if anybody works for the road department, I apologize immediately, but, good joke, it worked in there. But this is that fourth beast, in my opinion. It's bigger, it's more powerful, it's more destruction, and it creates what we could probably recognize as true dominion at that time. And those are the roads that Christianity is going to spread on. And the best thing that could happen is Rome will outlaw us. That's a confusing statement, isn't it? The best thing that could happen is Rome will outlaw us. Because what happened then? During that period, if you go do your research, during the period that Rome started with Emperor Diocletian, outlawed Christianity, Christianity grew exponentially. They met in secret, knowing they could die just for being there. They traveled around with little parts cut from Scripture, knowing they would die if they're caught with it. And they did it anyway, and they carried it here and there, and people wanted to know what it was. I've always said, if you want more people to know something, don't make a public announcement. Tell a few people and tell them not to tell nobody. Like it's a rumor. Man, it'll run places you've never seen. And in this case, that's what this fourth beast is. It has dominion over the world, and God will use that to spread His word when it comes time. Verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, in most places that I researched this, they all agreed that this is an end times prophecy that we're seeing the beginning of here. Out of the aftermath of the Roman Empire. Now, Roman Empire fell, right? Well, it's one thing to fall, but there's still tons of influence. And the best thing I can give you, the best example I can give you, is the eagle. Okay? When Rome created an army to move into the field, and if I'm given generalship over it, I'm given a standard that is just a giant solid gold eagle that will move before my army. That eagle is sitting on a perch, wings spread, solid gold. Under no circumstance am I to ever let that be taken. And if you are in my army, wherever that eagle standard is going, whether it's going forward, backward, left, right, wherever, you follow that. If you can't hear my voice, look for that eagle, follow it. Even if I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe the guy carrying the eagle's lost his mind and running off somewhere. You still followed it, because that's what discipline training taught you to do. Now Rome falls. The eagle does not. The Ottoman Empire had an eagle symbol. When Christianity travels north into Russia and the Romanov dynasty for the next 500 years or more develops eagle symbol. Imperial Germany, influenced by Rome, the imperial eagle. Later Nazi Germany, the imperial eagle. The United States, the imperial eagle. Our forefathers, our founders of this country studied Roman bureaucracy. You think that is not still influencing and being felt today? I'm sorry, I think it is. And these visions are telling him that. And this little horn in all apocalyptic visions, this little horn, we don't have to introduce who this is. This is the coming Antichrist. And he will have vision. And he will speak in a charismatic way. The Antichrist won't be rejected. You know, you watch all these movies, they always, you can always tell who the Antichrist is because they always have this sinister looking guy, right? The lost world won't see him that way. They'll see him as a man of great vision. He'll speak in a way that is so charismatic that people will gladly follow him into anything, into any direction. There will not be a difficulty there. There will not be a struggle there. There will not be suspicion. They will, if you take a look in the book of Revelation, when he takes control, they will be glad he does, because he will stop a period of chaos that is manufactured for his debut. And from this point, that's what this apocalyptic vision that he has is this view. But let's look at verse 9 to continue it. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. These thrones that are coming down are the thrones that God will sit on in judgment. Okay, that's universal. The older empires, all those things that have gone on before are now going to be judged, and God is depicted in that white hair and raiment as a source of purity. We have to be forgiven our sin, or we can't come into his presence, can we? Our sin tarnishes us in such a way that we can't even be in the presence of God. And that's what's going on here. And these flames are always symbols of power and cleansing. Always are. And that's what we're getting ready to see. This set up for judgment, and it's going to be a judgment for the whole world in this situation. Verse 10, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him, and thousands of thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. Now, this is the most dynamic scene of judgment that probably has been described so far in the Bible. This is an amazing scene. Just the people ministering to God were thousands and thousands of thousands. That's not even a number they had back then. You know what I'm saying? I mean, today there's some mathematician that can write out a number that's as long as that wall probably to try to get us started down that road. Uncountable numbers just there to minister unto God. Uncountable numbers there as a spectator force to see this judgment and to witness this judgment. And you know, that's a little detail I think that gets overlooked in a lot of these discussions. this judgment will be witnessed. It'll be witnessed by those saints that have gone on before. That's why it says thrones, not throne. You know, those people, if you look back into the Old Testament, those people who are martyred, those people who have gone on before, they'll be there. They'll see it. They'll witness it. They're there in support of what is going on. And this is the most dynamic scene. And again, I ask that question, do apocalyptic visions make you afraid? Well, instead of fearing a scene like this, if you're a saved Christian, this is a wonderful thing. This is what we've all been waiting for. We should rejoice at this, because this is the coming of the promise and the fulfillment of prophecy that we've studied and lived our faith-filled lives for. There's no reason for us to fear that. There's no reason for us to fear the book of Revelation. Absolutely no reason. We are what it's written for. That's our eternal kingdom that's coming. If you're lost, fear it. If you're lost, fear it. Be afraid of it. But find out what to do about it. Because if you're lost and you're still breathing, there's something you can do. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Right? Simply put. Now, these books that it mentions in the end of verse 10, this is the record of all things. Nobody disputes that. The judgment was set and the books were opened. Everything that's been done. It's all chronicled. We can't explain it away. We can't argue with it. We can't deny it. It's all written. What book are we in? Are we in the book of judgment, or are we in the book on the list of the saved side? Thankfully, I can say I'm saved. I'm in the right book. I don't want to be on that other ledger. That's an audit I don't want to sit through, right? I do not want to do that. Verse 11, I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, and I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. The Antichrist, right to the end, will speak dynamically. He will boast of empty deeds. He will promise things that will never be. And yet people will believe. Unfortunately, people will believe. And then that judgment will come, and that unnamed beast, that Antichrist that we don't know yet, his judgment will be swift and brutal. There will not be, hey, hang around, go sit in the corner, hey, go to jail, hey, we're going to discipline you and then see how you do after the fact. It'll just be over for him. There will be nothing left. Verse 12, moving right to the end here, as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Now, these other beasts, remember, if you see it the way I see it, there were these empires. Well, you know what? There are people still living in those old empires. There are people still living in the Middle East. There's still people living in Greece. There's still people living in Italy, where Rome was seated. And when they were destroyed, they weren't destroyed so utterly that people didn't survive. And God, in his plan, has plans for these people to linger. Can you be a Greek and be saved? Yes. Those people were spared an opportunity there to make things right in the coming centuries after Christ's resurrection. And these earthly empires, that teaches us right there. These earthly empires will come and go. And as patriotic as I am, the United States is not the kingdom I want to live in. God's kingdom's the kingdom I'm going to live in. I love my country, don't get me wrong. I love the United States. I think it's the best thing going. I can't find anywhere else that offers what we offer, but at the same time, we're not perfect, not by a long mile. We have our issues, we have our problems, but we're still the best option out there. But the kingdom that I want to live in eternally is the kingdom led by my King Jesus, is the kingdom that God creates for me, that I know is coming because it's in this word right here, and I believe it. I have faith in it. So, if you travel that thread, Greece, Rome, Russia, the Ottoman Empire, Britain, Germany, the United States, one day they'll all be gone. And they won't even be pages in a history book at that point, because this old world will be destroyed and a new world will take its place. And I'm saved, so I'll live in a perfected body in that new world. I'll be a citizen of God's kingdom, and I'll live with him forever. And I hope many more can join. I moved my bookmark, sorry. Chapter 6, verse 26. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. Absolutely. Spells it right out there, doesn't it? And that, remember chronologically, that comes way after this dream. And I don't think Daniel had shared that dream with them, but it still ties back perfectly. Glad you brought that out. That's it. That's it right there. We could close the book. It's going to last forever. It's up to you to make a choice. Do you want to live in that kingdom that will last forever, or do you want to take the alternative, which is much hotter for a long time? And that alternative is hell. There's no question. That alternative is hell. It's not a different kingdom. It's not another place to live. It's an eternity in hell, separated from God. We get verse 13 and 14 together, and we'll close this out. This is a fantastic thing. We could just keep going on and on. Now, in verse 13, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Now, right back with what I just read, what you suggested from verse 26, that forever. And this, there's no question who this is. The Son of Man. In many places, Jesus even called himself the Son of Man. He arrives dynamically. This cloud-based arrival, this presentation before God the Father, and then to be put in a position of honor and power like this just echoes everything we know about Jesus and about how the heavenly kingdom is and will be. And he's given dominion, and that's kind of something that's a theme we've been chasing through this whole lesson. Babylon had this little dominion, and then Persia had a bigger dominion, and then Rome built a bigger dominion. And it just keeps getting bigger. But the ultimate dominion is the dominion that God has. The ultimate dominion is the dominion that Jesus will be given through the power of God to have an everlasting, forever kingdom. You know, when you hear people talk about somebody's going to have a forever home and, you know, forever this, forever that, I think that's a word we've kind of forgotten the power of. It's so common today. Forever is all eternity, right? It's all eternity. It's never going to change. And once it's too late, it's too late. If you're lost and that moment comes, that past the point of no return, that'll be it. There'll be no going back. There'll be no changing it. But come and live in the forever kingdom. Come and live with the one that's going to win, where all these other powers existed. There's not going to be a power that can stand up. There's not going to be a power that can take him out. That everybody, as in verse 26 says again, men will tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. It won't be the saved men that fear and tremble, though. It'll be the lost. Right? Next week we're going to be in chapter 9. The rest of this chapter goes on with a sort of almost review. It says the dream explained, but it's almost a review of all this stuff. It doesn't really spell it out simply in this book, in this chapter. I think that's where faith has to come in. I think that's where faith has to come in, and you have to just pray for God to give you that understanding. And guess what? The good news is one day, as we go forward into this possibility future of this could happen anytime, God will give us that greater understanding when the time comes. So never be frustrated with your confusion, because God will bless you with that knowledge you need. Anything that anybody want to say? Anybody want to add?
I think this shows you that God is not a respecter of persons. He's got a remnant in every nation.
Yep, absolutely. And you can't go anywhere to hide from him. You know, you can't run away from him. There's nowhere that he isn't. And he doesn't have to have, you know, at this time, there was only one chosen people. And yet, look at how he moved all these other empires and made all these things fit together at a certain point. without the Roman Empire, there can be no crucifixion. Think about that. Because who crucified Jesus? Food for thought.
You were talking about the fear of apocalyptic event. The last real event, I guess, there used to be, probably wasn't Nazis. I mean, we've had smaller, but probably the most real thing. If you ever think of a Christian heart, Christianity was given to us even before we were given Christ. I think when man was made in the likeness of God, I think we had that in our hearts. And I think the end of every apocalyptic event that we see in history is because of that heart that we have. See something in us. If Hitler had not been such a prejudice and such a biased man toward people of color, people of different faiths and different things. If he had not had that bias, our world would be much different today. Because his leadership abilities were tremendous. And he could talk people, he was that voice out of that horn that spoke great things. But if he had not had that prejudice, that the God, the Christian heart that we have, it offended him so much that it turned the world against him. And thank God for that.
And there are, I mean, the Bible says there will be antichrists, plural, and he's certainly one of them. But, think back what you just said. He had the ability to speak, and that was one of his greatest attributes, was his ability to make these speeches and sway the hearts of tens of thousands. If he has that power, and he's not the ultimate Antichrist, can you imagine how much power the ultimate Antichrist will actually have? I mean, what he got those people to do in Germany mid-century boggles the mind, and the survivors of it can't even explain it, some of them. They all, I mean, of course they make excuses, and I was just doing what I was told, and all those patent excuses. But, I mean, the bottom line is those people, through speeches and propaganda and misinformation, were led into this horrific period of time where the blood on their hands can never be washed away except by the blood of Christ. And there is just an absolute power there that is unmistakable. And yet that pales, I think, in comparison to what the real Antichrist will be able to do when he gets up and speaks. That's going to be an amazing thing, an absolutely amazing thing to think of that chapter that is coming. And we don't know when. Because what did Jesus say about his own second coming? No man knoweth. And we may be in those days, a lot of people, that's the other thing about apocalyptic visions, is that people look at what's going on and what's gone on and say, oh, look at this, look at that, and they start pointing stuff out and they say, yeah, we're here right now. Well, people were doing that, 1,000 years ago. So, no man knoweth. We just have to live by faith. And that's why I can't let myself be afraid of these events and these prophecies, because I've got Jesus on my side. I don't have to worry about it. As bad as it can get, this is temporary. What is forever is eternity, and I know where I'm going to be. And I hope you do too. Anything else before we close?
Just to touch on that one, yes, Hitler could sway the hearts, but even Jeremiah told us that the heart is deceitful. And They don't speak a lot about the mind in the Old Testament. It was heart. And even earlier times, people, they didn't speak much about the mind. It was all about the heart. But then you start to transition over to the New Testament,
and praying for that understanding, you're praying for your own mind, not you're praying for your heart.